Brother, can I be honest with you? You can be surrounded by people at work, at church, even at home, and still feel completely alone. Loneliness isn't about who's around you, it's about feeling unseen, feeling unheard, and unnoticed, even by God sometimes. But here's the truth: God doesn't waste isolation. Sometimes He allows loneliness not to punish you, but to prepare you. So if you've been feeling empty, if you've been feeling disconnected or forgotten, then stay with me. By the end of this video, you're going to see how loneliness can become the place where God rebuilds your strength and restores your purpose. So let's get started with this. Loneliness doesn't mean weakness. Let me say that again. Loneliness doesn't mean weakness. Some of the strongest men in scripture went through seasons of deep isolation. And yes, being alone, it does suck. I've been there myself many times before. Let's take a look at Elijah. Elijah called fire down from heaven. Then he sat under a tree and begged God to end his life. David was anointed king and then spent years hiding in caves and feeling forgotten. Even Jesus himself withdrew to lonely places in order for him to pray. Loneliness is not a sign God left you. It's often a classroom where he teaches us dependence upon him. I've been there before where God would take me to the desert on military deployments, and it was about that loneliness, that isolation, but God needed time alone with me to deliver and put me into a classroom where he taught dependence upon him. You see, here's the thing: the enemy loves to twist loneliness into shame. The enemy loves to twist loneliness into shame. And he whispers in your ear, see, nobody cares about you. You're irrelevant. You're forgotten. Nobody wants to be around you. Nobody wants to hang out with you. But that is a lie. So don't believe that. You're not forgotten. You're being forged. God is forging you. So, what is the purpose of isolation? Well, think about this for a second. Before David held a crown, he held a slingshot. He was alone in a field holding that slingshot. Before Joseph wore a robe of authority, he wore chains in prison. He was alone. Before Jesus stepped into ministry, he was in the wilderness alone. God will often isolate you before he elevates you. And why is that? Because in the crowd, you hear opinions. You hear family opinions, coworkers' opinions, even people's opinions out in the marketplace. You hear so many different opinions, but in isolation, you hear God's voice and God's voice alone. And that's what matters. Loneliness can be painful. It can be so painful. I have truly been there. When it comes to, I've been there in the past in marriages where felt alone. I've been there in churches where I felt alone. Even in my career field, my and later in life, my career field was just feeling lonely because there was maybe one or two people other in my office. And so loneliness is going to set in. And I've had that experience of true loneliness. But it's also purposeful. And I can think back to those times of being lonely, how God truly spoke to me. It's where God breaks down your dependence on approval of others, and he replaces it with confidence in his presence, in his power, and in his abilities. So don't curse the cave, brother. Don't curse the cave. It might just be the place where God's preparing your crown. Let me say it again. Don't curse the cave. It might just be the place where God's preparing your crown, where God is preparing you to elevate you to the next level. So let's be real for a second. Loneliness can mess with your head. It's messed with my head. I thought, man, am I not good enough? Why is nobody reaching out to me? And by messing with your head, you start overthinking everything. You replay conversations. You convince yourself that nobody understands you. And that's when the enemy is going to start planting lies in your head, planting lies in your mind, lies like you're unworthy of friendships, or you fail too much to be useful. I even remember a time more recently when I said to my wife, I'm like, you know what? It just seems like I don't have any friends. And that was just the enemy planting those seeds into my mind because as soon as I said that, the phone started ringing and it was just friend after friend. And my wife was like, look, you have plenty of friends. So don't let the enemy discourage you or distract you. So here is where Second Corinthians comes back into play. We take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. Let me say that again. When the enemy starts plugging these seeds into us, we have to remind ourselves of Second Corinthians, where we take every thought captive and we make it obedient to Christ. You've got to catch those lies and replace them with the truth. When the thought says, I'm alone, then you speak life into it. You speak Psalm 139 into it. Where can I go from my spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? You might be physically alone, but spiritually, you are never abandoned. Let me say that again. You might be physically alone, but spiritually, you are never abandoned. So now, how do we turn this into practical steps? You're like, you know what, Lee, you said a lot, but what's the practicality into this? All right, I'm glad you asked. So, here are 4 steps to start overcoming loneliness today. All right. The first is this, that you have to reconnect vertically. See that? You reconnect vertically. And what does that mean? You reconnect vertically with God. Stop scrolling on your phone. As much as we love doing that, stop scrolling on your phone and stop running. Stop numbing and just sit with God. Spend some time with God, but you have to reconnect vertically with God and talk to God honestly, and He can handle and will handle all of your frustrations. Here's a psalm that you can read, Psalm 42, and pray through it. Tell him, Lord, I miss you and I need you. Lord, I miss you and I need you. And God will fill that void. God will fill that loneliness, but you have to reconnect with God vertically. Step 2 is this, reconnect horizontally. Reconnect horizontally with people. You weren't meant to fight alone. Proverbs 27 says this, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Now, you have to reconnect horizontally with people. So many times we say to ourselves, oh man, I don't want to be bothered, or they don't want to be bothered with us. We talk ourselves out of that and we just start to shrink back and isolate ourselves, but we have to reconnect horizontally with other people. How do you do that? You join a men's group. For one, you join a church if you're not a part of a church. You join a Bible study if that's what it is. You know what? Just text somebody, text a brother from church and say, hey, let's get connected. Don't wait for the perfect connection either. Just start a conversation. You'd be surprised if you go out to an event, go out to a men's event at church and just spark up a conversation like, "Hey, is this the right line?" You'll be amazed. I tell you what, a few months ago, I went to a men's conference. I was not familiar with the church. I'd never been there before, but I wanted to go. And so I'm in line and I walk up. I'm a few minutes late. Everybody's already standing around getting ready to get in. And I'm just like, everybody's having their conversations. But there's a guy who walked up right in front of me in line. And I just simply said, "Hey, man, do you go to this church?" "Oh, yeah, I go." And it started up a conversation. Next thing you know, I'm inside eating with the guy, fellowshipping, meeting with his friends, and everything is good. But you have to connect horizontally and don't wait for the perfect connection. Get started. Start with a simple conversation. Amen. So, first step was connect vertically with God. Second step, connect horizontally with other people. Next, step three is refill what loneliness has emptied. Let me say that again. Loneliness drains your energy. So you have to refill what loneliness has empty. Refill it with worship. Refill it with workouts, with journaling, with walks, things that restore your spirit because that loneliness just depletes you. It depletes you. So you have to refill that energy level. You have to refill it once again through worship, through prayer, through workouts, through journaling, but through walking. Get up and get moving and get back into the game. Because when you neglect your body, your mind starts agreeing with your pain. Let me say that again. When you neglect your body, your mind starts agreeing with your pain. So, once again, refill what loneliness has emptied you. Okay. So, vertically with God, horizontally with other people, and refill that loneliness that's emptied you. Fourth step is this: reframe this season. Instead of saying, "Why am I alone?" say, "Lord, what are you teaching me here?" In everything that God takes you through, we should be asking God to show us what the lesson behind it is. And you'll be amazed. God will talk to you and speak to you and show you what was the lesson you needed to learn through this process. Lord, what are you teaching me here? And God may be pruning relationships so that he can position you for something greater. Either he's working on you on your end of the relationship, or he's working on the other folks on the other end so that when you all get together, it's the perfect combination. So remember, Jesus was alone in the garden before he saved the world. So this was God isolating him before he stepped up to the biggest challenge ever. So remember and keep this in mind: vertical relationship with God, horizontal with other people, and then refill what you've been emptied out and ask God, what is it that I'm learning during this period? When David was hiding from Saul, he was alone. He was afraid. And he wrote in Psalm 34, he wrote this: "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." In his darkest moment, David didn't find comfort in company, he found it in communion, communion with God. And when he walked out of that cave, he wasn't the same man who went in. He came out with courage, with clarity, and with conviction. Brother, that's what's waiting for you too. Not defeat, but development. Let me share this with you. There's so many times that God took me to the desert to isolate me, and I walked out of the desert through military deployment such a better person. Such a better person. I remember one time where I was very critical of my pastor. And God said, "You know what? I'm going to send you to the desert to teach you." So I went to the desert and God put me in a leadership position. Of all positions, God put me over the choir. And everybody else was just so critical of what I did. And God showed me that lesson. So God is teaching us. He's developing us. It's not defeat, it's development. It's not isolation, it's intimacy with Him. I remember being in the desert, getting the closest I've ever gotten to God. It's all about intimacy. God has to remove those distractions sometimes in our lives. And when we're around a bunch of people and we're always in the mix, there's so much noise that we cannot hear from God. We're asking everybody else's opinion. I've been there myself because we need to hear that audible voice. So we ask different people in our circle what they think. And God's like, you know what? Just turn to me. I have the answer the whole time. But you went through all these different people that you know asking, and you got 20 different answers. Now you're confused. If you would have just come to me in the beginning, we could have solved the problem. All right, so let me talk straight to your heart. If you've been feeling alone, this is your reminder that God sees you. God sees you. He hasn't forgotten your name. He hasn't forgotten your pain. He hasn't forgotten your purpose. It's time to move. Don't stay stuck in that silence. Reach out to God. Reach out to God. Reach out to a brother, to a community. But do not stay alone. God did not intend us to stay alone. Start with talking to God, then talking to others, and feel what that loneliness has taken away from you and start moving. Brother, if this message spoke to you, I want to personally invite you to join our Christian Man to Man Brotherhood. It's a community where men like you and I connect, we grow, and we find strength in God together. I want you to go ahead and click the link below and check us out. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like. And in the comments below, let us know what you thought of this video. Brother, if you've been feeling alone, this is your reminder that God sees you. God sees everything. He hasn't forgotten your name. He hasn't forgotten your pain or your purpose. But it's time to move. Don't stay stuck in silence. Reach out. Reach out to God. Reach out to brothers around you. Reach out to the community. Reach out and don't stay in that rut of being alone. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and share this with a brother who you know is suffering in silence. And remember this, you might feel lonely, but you are never alone because the God who walks with you in the valley is the same God who will lead you to victory. Take care and God bless.